Hello, farmers, and welcome to another episode of the harvest season. My name is Al,
And my name is Jonnie.
and we're here today to talk about cottage core games. Woo!
Woo!
Before we get going, just a reminder that transcripts for this podcast are available in the show notes and on the website. Today, me and Jonnie, are going to talk about Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, because apparently I didn't write it in the show notes. We're going to talk about Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, the sequel to Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. And we're not going to talk about it now. We're going to talk about it later. Before that, just because we could easily fall into a discussion about it right now if we're not careful.
Yeah, I was already had like a line of things. I was like, oh, I should not say this right now.
Before that, we've got a bunch of news. But first of all, Jonnie, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? There is a game called Skull and Bones, and apparently it has been in development since 2013, and it is apparently about to come out, but this weekend it is doing a public demo, I guess, is what it is, where, anyone can try the game for free. It will be over by the time you're listening to this, although the game will be like a day or two from coming out. And look, I'm a bit of a slut for pirates. Like, I love pirate games, even though they're just, like, piracy is so hard to do well in games. And I think in many respects, Skull and Bones is kind of a testament to that. Like, there are things that I really like about the game, but it's going to be a pretty hard game to recommend. Like, people spend, I assume it's going to be like a $70 game, and it'd be very hard to recommend that anyone spend $70 on a game like this unless you are super, super into pirates.
I'm not, so... I mean, pirates are fine, but I've
Yeah.
never been like, oh yeah, I love pirates. Like, I've enjoyed some pirate-based media, but there's a difference between, oh yeah, I like that, and like, oh no, I must consume the pirate-based media.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that the biggest problem with pirate-based stuff is ship-to-ship combat is really hard to do and to make fun and engaging.
Yeah.
And everyone probably has a slightly different view on what it should be.
The fun bit, I think,
do
there
they
is
want it to
key.
be?
It is. It's probably, you can probably make a pretty accurate one, but it's not going to be fun.
Correct, yeah. And that's in many respects, I think Skull and Bones has gone down. How do we try and make it fun? And I'm sure a lot of people will find the version fun. For me, it's a little bit too like you and your pirate ship mow down hundreds of other pirate ships, which feels like that's not what I guess I want from a pirate ship experience. For me, I want like to engage in one ship in a sort of long, drawn out battle rather than mow down 100 ships.
Yeah, and I guess the difficulty is like, what are you focusing on? Because when you've got a ship, do you focus on the traversal? Do you focus on the combat? Do you try and do both of them badly? There's a lot to think of there.
Yeah, and I guess for me, the Skull and Bones, like, you have a character, but realistically in this one, your character is the ship, right? You are controlling the ship, and that is the majority of the gameplay. And I think that's one of the things that I'm learning about what I like in games over the sort of past few months is a strong narrative element. And in many respects, I think that means I need a character that I feel tied to, because, I think my take on Skull and Bones is like, I will have fun with it, but I, after this demo, will likely have got what I needed to get out of it, which I had the same experience with Power World, where it's like, I experienced the thing and it was cool, but without that strong narrative-driven element or hook that I could find, I bounce off it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but that's what I've been playing. Al, what have you been up to?
I was racking my brain because I'm like, have I played anything other than Turnip Boy? And I don't think I have. This week has been quite... Because I'm going to America next week. Like, as you listen to this, I will probably be on my way to America, unless you're listening to it straight away as it comes out. So, yeah, I've not really been playing that much.
Are you feeling ready for your America trip?
Are we ever truly ready?
Well, look, if anyone is gonna like be a person that is ready for a trip, it's probably gonna be you.
Well,
Al.
because the problem is that somebody who like, am I ready? Probably, but does that mean I feel ready? Like, those are two different things. And like, have I done enough to mean that logically I know I will be fine? Yes. Does that mean that I, in my heart, feel that I'm going to be fine? No, of course not. I am convinced that I'm going to die in a fiery plane crash, right? So it's just, I think that the people who feel ready for a trip aren't ready for a trip.
That's fair. That's fair. And you're going to America to play Pokemon Go, right? That's the.
I am going to America to meet with friends, and I will also be playing Pokemon Go when I'm there. Yeah, my next recording, I will be back having been to America, and that will be interesting. My first transatlantic flight, my first flight longer than 2.5 hours. So we'll see. Yeah, I honestly don't think I've played anything else. I played some Just Dance, I guess. I've been doing that.
At home, or are you going to arcades and playing like Just Dance in an arcade? What are you?
Do they have Just Dance in arcades?
I'm sure they do, right? It's got to be. Oh, or maybe I'm thinking of DDR.
Yeah, they had obviously they had dance mats, but like I don't think they have Just Dance in an arcade. Cool. Should we talk about some news
Let's do it.
before I fall asleep? So our first piece of news is Botany Manor. They have announced that their release date is the 9th of April. So I don't think this was out in early access at all. So this will be its like proper first release date, but it is a non-early access release. Rare these days.
It's kind of novel, which I like.
Ironically, you stick out now by not doing early access, whereas previously you would stick out by doing early access. No interest in this game, Jonnie?
Not really. Like it's hard, right? Because I want to be excited about all cottagecore games because you and I remember the time when it was Stardew and Harvest Moon and Rune Factory, and that was it. And so we'd be excited about anything new. And now we are in the opposite time where there is such an abundance of games that there has to be, I guess there's specific things that I'm looking for, and often I don't know that I'm looking for it until I see it. And, for me, Botany Manor...
And this is not it.
Yeah, this is not it. Botany Manor kind of, just the visual style is not there for me, and it just... I don't know. It kind of falls into the match. And I'm trying to not be overly negative about a game I have not played. It just is not. It's just not kind of rising through everything else to be like that's one that I feel like I'm putting on my list of games I need to try.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you mentioned the art style. It's very simple graphics except the plants, which I get what they're doing there because like the focus is the plants, but it also feels a little bit weird that the plants are so detailed when everything else is quite simple textures.
Yeah, I think what you just said kind of triggered the thought for me that it feels almost like a student's, like a game that a student would submit for an assignment sort of thing, that's I'm sure there's way more work that's gone into this, and building games is very hard, but it's kind of missing some of that polish that makes it look and feel like a finished product, which in theory it is.
Yeah, I can see how somebody would like this, but yeah, I'm not. I don't care about the detail of plants quite. I think so. That's where it falls down for me. It's like it's really focused on the plants, which would be good if you really care about the plants, but I don't.
Yes.
Next, we have Moonstone Island have a content update and a DLC. Let's talk about the DLC first because the DLC is very small. All of Moonstone Island's DLCs are basically cosmetics. So it's the Valentine's DLC. You can get a heart rug, a heart house skin for your house. That's a very bad sentence. A heart box of chocolates, a heart archway brackets or harchway, and a heart lamp as well as a love seat. And that is $3.99 with a 20% launch discount. I I will not be buying that DLC because I don't care about those cosmetics.
But if you do care about that style of cosmetic, they are good looking versions of those.
Yeah, they fit in really nicely with the game in general, and they are hearts, and they are detailed hearts. The heart house is not just a heart shaped house; it's a heart shaped house with a heart shaped windows and a heart shaped hole on not the heart shaped door. That would be silly. And a bow on it as well with a little yellow heart as well. It's very heart shaped. It is what it says on the tin. But it's also coming along with the content update, the Valentine's update, which is, you may well have guessed, it's bringing marriage to the game. Woo! So it's not bringing relationships. Relationships already exist in the game, but they were quite limited in what you could do with them. There was no marriage in that. So they're bringing in marriage. The marriage in this game seems interesting. There was a thing, I need to double check in the trailer, because there was a thing that seemed like, so they move into your house and then there was something about somebody sleeping on a couch, but I can't remember what it was.
I do not recall seeing
yeah
this.
We're missing a bunch of the details until it comes out, probably. I don't think I can see myself spending much time on romance in this game.
Yeah, that seems fair. So one of my things is this game already has so much going on, being that, cozy creature collection, just it feels like marriage is just another thing in a game that already has a lot of things.
The good thing is it also comes with other things. So there's 5 new spirits, including one that looks like a toaster with some bread in it, and one that's a robot dog, and one that is a weird fish snake, and a toxic thing, I don't know what that is, and a kiwi.
Yeah, we all love kiwis.
There's also a new taming system, but I have not seen any details about that. So I don't know what to think about that. And some more stuff.
The kiwi looks very stressed. Detailed. That's my take.
This kiwi does look very stressed, which is fair enough. Kiwi what? So it's electric, I'm presuming, which is why all the hair is standing on end. Kiwi what? I feel like that's an extra syllable than it should have been kiwat.
That sounds much better.
Hire me, Moonstone Island. I have opinions on your names.
The toaster one's very cute as well.
Coney Island have a new update as well, which is out now. The Lunar Union Festival update. It's adding a new festival to the game. We probably don't need to go into too much details. We've not even covered the game on the podcast yet, so... That makes it sound like I'm going to. I don't know whether we will or not. Come celebrate the Lunar Union Festival with us and collect exclusive items. A lunar spirit will appear in the hamlet. During the Lunar Union event, it will give a quest that will reward you with ribbits and beautiful rewards. Reading these things when you've not played a game are always fascinating.
Yeah. And I don't really recall much about Coney Island, like from covering previous stuff on the podcast, but it looks like a cool game. And I guess more generally, like I'm pretty anti a lot of festivals in games because I think they're kind of just boring and played out. But one thing that I really like from like the last sort of, 5 to 10 years is I feel like games have done a good job of amplifying festivals from other cultures, and that's been really cool to see. And I think that so these are the sorts of festivals that I like because they often have much wider interpretations of what they are, as opposed to like a Christmas winter festival, which is kind of just like, we're going to do something with snow and presents, and that's it. So this looks cool, and I'm excited. And happy Year of the Dragon.
Yes. Slime Rancher 2 also have a new update out now, and this is the Gadgets My Way update. It includes a new gadget system. So if you've played the game and you know how the gadgets used to work, it's changed. There you go.
So I feel like every time you and I are on a show, Al, there's some sort of Slime Rancher update, and neither of us care about Slime Rancher. And I really like. I thought this time like I'm really gonna try and care, and I was just like Slime Rancher people. God bless you. Do you? I'm sure you'll love it or hate it or whatever. It's coming.
I feel like I need to play the game sometime, but not yet. maybe when Slime Rancher 2 is out of early access.
Yeah.
Potion Permit is coming to iOS and Android.
This.
Oh no, it's out now. It is now on. It's not coming to. It has come to.
Yes.
It came.
It did, and I'm curious.
Still don't care?
Yeah, no, I'm curious, right? Like,
interesting.
I like the idea of what Potion Permit was trying to do. I was going back through trying to find I need to go back and find the episode that was done on Potion Permit. I have the same reservation, like I had for Stardew Valley going on mobile. Like, how easy is it to play? But this game has the right visual style for a mobile game. So I am curious. I'm kind of in a phase where I don't really mobile game much outside of Marvel Snap, so I don't know that I'll stick with it, but I'm at least curious.
It is $5 translate into $5 translate into your local currency.
I feel like that's a good price point for a sizable mobile game.
Surprisingly, yeah, it's pretty cheap. I'm surprised it's that cheap, because if it's the full game ported to mobile, that seems suspiciously good. Too many tabs. Wildflowers. 2 exciting things, one of which you can actually do anything with, the other one you probably can't. So there's they've released what the plushie is. So it's a Beans plushie, that's the flying pig. Both Kevin and Cody predicted that. They were both correct. It is up on Makeship just now, and it is almost 50% funded, with 16 days to go. So go do that if you want it. Do I want a flying pig plushie?
Nah, I feel like if I'm buying a plush, I'm getting a Junimo plush.
The Junimo one is good.
Yeah. And also everything about Wildflowers just creeps me out. I talked about this last week, but I don't like their visual style at all. It's so creepy.
Well, I tell you what will definitely not make you like it more, which is the Apple Vision Pro version of the game. So this isn't just the game in a screen. It is, but it isn't. In so much as when you first look at it, it looks like it's just the game with a weird border around it. However, menus and farming and other things like that pop out of the screen into a 3D thing. So when you're in a menu, it will pop out to like one of the sides of the screen as a separate window. So it doesn't like cover up your gameplay, which is an interesting way of doing things. And the farming pops up out like in front of it, like down below, like an actual 3D farming plot that you can just like go on and grab things and move them, and like it's really I think I really like what they're doing here. I think this is an interesting way of, they're not just going, let's just put the game on, right? They're actually going, what can we actually do with the new features of this that makes this different? And I really like that. But I suspect Apple gave them a lot of money to do this, because is anybody going to buy this and play this? Because you have to have the headset, which you can only buy in the US just now and costs $3,500, and you have to like the game and be willing to put in the time and effort.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it's super cool that it's happening, right? And for me, it's one of those, like, wow, cottagecore games are really sort of, like, in the mainstream, given that this is, one of the first games, realistically, to sort of cross into that boundary. And I think some of the things that it looks like they're doing in Apple Vision Pro space, they make sense and they show the potential for what could be once we get out of the weird expensive prototype phase of this tech.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is I if I had an Apple Vision Pro, I would be playing this game on that, right? Like I would absolutely be doing it to see, at least to see what it's like, and if not more than that, like if I enjoy it, doing more than that. But yeah, like I can't for two reasons. Because of where I live and because of how expensive it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I like what they're doing. I like that they're pushing different ideas. I think this is a good example of how VR gaming doesn't have to be first person, right? First of all, like I don't like most VR gaming because I don't want to be first person. I don't want to do that. I don't like that. I always feel claustrophobic when you do that.
Yeah, I get motion sick, so I not like I just can't do VR at all. And so this sort of gaming is like, so this is how I could game in an AR style environment that would work, and it makes sense. And I think the other important thing is this is a less of a step for game development to take than into fully realized VR. Like I think I think in general people underestimate how difficult game development is, and I imagine VR game development is another step on top of that, whereas this feels like a more reasonable step to take.
For sure, yeah. I think it's very clever of Apple to have done this, right? Because
Yes.
Wildflowers have their agreement with Apple, like, oh, we pay you money, where you're now on Apple Arcade, and they've obviously then gone on top of that, we'll pay you more money, you will do this, and I'm guessing they worked together because, like, I think you've got to have these ideas and then do them, and I think these ideas are really interesting. And I'd like that both Apple and Wildflowers were willing to do this and put in the effort and the time, even though this is not going to make its money back.
Yeah. One of the things that I started thinking about, like looking at how this implementation went, was games like Palia, and where time continues moving in Palia even when you are menuing, because it's a MMO game, right?
Yes.
And the ability in this sort of environment to menu while still being able to fully see the world that or the screen, or however you want to that your character is in, to me makes a ton of sense, right? Like you've got that more seamless transition rather than looking at something different. So I don't know, like just some cool, like it's just cool to see this level of innovation and for it to be happening in the cottagecore space.
Yeah, I also think the farming is a really interesting thing because, like, in my opinion, most of the like things I don't like in farming games is the farming, and that's not because the farming isn't fun. It's because of the way that you interact with it. It's like, oh, you walk a step, you press a button. You walk a step, you press a button, right? And that's why I like to automate it as quickly as possible, because I don't enjoy that part of the gameplay. But being able to go like, oh, I am in this environment, here is my plots, and I can just go with my hand, water, 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 water. Like, that feels much more enjoyable to me because you're like actively doing the thing rather than like, oh, push that button, push that button, push that. It feels much more fun to me.
Totally.
An equally big update is Disney Dreamlight Valley. Update number 9 is coming soon, and in that you'll be able to change your name.
It has shocked me how excited people have been for changing your name. Like,
so let me explain why I am personally excited about this, and this is because of a bug in the game. So if you start Disney Dreamlight Valley in Game Pass streaming, I think specifically, you think you have to be doing the XPlay or whatever it is, right? The streaming the game, so you're not downloading it and playing it. which is how I played the game initially, because I had Game Pass and I was doing it on my Steam Deck, and the only way you can do that is with xCloud. That's what it's called, xCloud. If that's how you start Disney Dreamlight Valley, you cannot set your name. It's a bug in the game. I presume it's fixed by this point, but when I started it, it wasn't. So your player is called Player. So the entire time that I've been playing Disney Dreamlight Valley across multiple different platforms now for, what is it, a year and a half? Is it a year and a half this game's been out for now? All that time, I have been called Player, and everybody has been saying Player to me. I haven't been able to change that yet. That's why I'm excited. Not because, like, if that bug didn't exist, I wouldn't care about this feature.
I feel like I didn't know about that bug, and I don't think it impacted me, so now this makes way more sense.
Like, I don't care about changing names. Once I've set my name, I'm fine. But I never set my name. That's the problem. I was called Player. That's not my name. Anyway, I'm excited to have my name in the game. And our final piece of news is for the fantastically named Garden Life, a Cozy Simulator, which we have talked about before. I don't really want to get into it too much, but they've released a trailer for their story. Jonnie, do you want to complain about the name? You can complain about the name.
No, I complained about the name on a previous episode.
You've done that already.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, I did watch the trailer, and there's some cool stuff, or like so the trailer talks about the fact that it's a community garden and the person that used to look after it passed away early. Idea of community garden looked after by one person, kind of doesn't make sense. But you are the
flawed.
Yeah.
Well, you say it doesn't make sense. I think that's very likely what happens most of the time.
I mean, you're probably right. And you're the new person to look after it. I just again, coming back to sort of the visual style, I don't like it. This feels like we talked before about VR games. This game looks like a VR game to me. And
it does, doesn't it? It does. It's the first person. I don't want to play first-person games. Like, I don't find it fun.
It makes sense in certain genres and certain gameplay styles, and I do not think this is one of them.
But this is why I don't play those games, because I just don't like. I just feel claustrophobic when I'm. It's a weird feeling, but I want to be. And normally, most games, I want to be my camera to be further away than it actually is. I will always put the camera out to the furthest point because I want to be able to see as much as possible. So I was very happy when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet added the third camera zoom option. That was great. I loved that. Yeah, I agree. I don't think. I mean, the name aside, which is just stupid on multiple levels. It doesn't look like a game I would want to play. It feels a lot like Botany Manor.
It does. Yes.
Talking about them so close together, they feel like the same game. It's almost like two people had the same idea, and instead of working together, they both did their own take on it.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's very fair.
And both coming out within 2 months of each other.
Yeah, that's ages apart now. In well, there's still a chance one of them gets delayed, right?
No.
No?
I don't think so. Not this close to them.
Right. Well, I don't think we'll be covering either of these games, so we'll see.
Unless somebody suddenly gets really excited about them, we'll see.
Well, if it does happen, I bet that my money's on Kev. That it hits.
I was going to say Cody.
Oh yeah, that's fair. So Kev and Cody covering Garden Life, a Cozy Simulator, and
they need to play both of them and compare them on the same podcast.
Oh yes, there we go.
So that's the news. Woo.
Woo.
I can't even remember when the wooing started. Why do we woo so much? I'm not a woo person.
Yeah, because it gets over the awkwardness of not knowing how to do good transitions.
Thank you. We're going to talk about Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. So just before we get into it, I want to start out with a couple of things. So first of all, this is a sequel to Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Officially. The first game was not cottagecore, We covered it because you grow a plant at the beginning, and then there's no more farming, and it is definitely not cottagecore. But that's why we covered it. Whatever, we can get past that. This game is even less cottagecore, and so I'm just going to put that out there. If you don't want to listen to a game that is not cottagecore at all, then feel free. We're covering this because it's a sequel to a game that both me and Jonnie liked, and we were both going to play it anyway because we wanted to, and we're covering it. So it turns out this game's a roguelite.
Yeah.
Jonnie, I'm not crazy, right? Like, that seemed to come out of left field, right?
It definitely did. They're like... so here's the thing. You and I both really like Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Very clearly...
Loved it. Fantastic game.
The weakest part of that game was the combat. And in many respects, they took the worst part of their game and said, let's make that the game. Which was a choice.
Yeah, I think... yes, you are correct. That is what they did. So listeners will know I do not generally like roguelites. Jonnie, I liked this game.
Ow. What?
So I was fully expecting, right? I didn't play this game till like 2 days ago, and I was fully expecting not to like it, right? I was like, I'm gonna just play this for like 2 hours, and I'm gonna hate it, and I'm gonna be really disappointed, and I'm gonna put it away. And I was mostly like that until I defeated the first boss. And then I realized that this game does things to solve the problems that I have with roguelites. My issue with roguelites is that even though you like build up resources and you build up more skills and blah, 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 every time you run through, it's a clean slate and you have to start from the beginning. In this game, once you defeat one of the bosses, they're defeated. You don't have to defeat them again. Technically until the end. I'll get to that. And that one thing for me made me like this game. If you had to defeat every boss in every run, I would have absolutely hated it, and I never would have got close to finishing it. I have been very close to finishing this game. I've been like one mistake away from finishing it 6 times now. The same mistake. It's really frustrating. The last bit, really frustrating. Basically, when you get to a point where you've defeated all the bosses, and then you have to do one run where you defeat all 4 bosses in one go, that wasn't too hard. What was hard then is there's like a special 5th thing at the end where like you're having to run around doing certain things while being chased by another boss, and that boss is so powerful that he can like kill you in like 2 hits. So that's the frustrating thing. But I agree that the combat is not great in this game, but there's still something about it that I'm finding very fun, and I'm finding it difficult to explain why.
You're probably finding it difficult because I feel like you're just on some crazy pills. Like, and to be fair, I think your point about not having to beat the bosses again is a good one. I was kind of surprised, but it makes sense given like the boss fights are significantly bigger than the other aspects of the game, and bigger is kind of the wrong word, but on a run in this game, you've got a timer, and that timer's only a couple of minutes. When you're in a boss fight, that timer pauses, but that boss fight itself takes like a couple of minutes to get through. They are not fast fights relative to the length of your run. And not having to do those every single run, I think, was a really good choice, because that became one of the blockers for me with Hades. I really like Hades. I'm not very good at roguelite combat games, and like banging my head against some of the bosses became a bit of a blocker for me in in that game, and I would have liked some ability to not have to fight them every single run, even though I get that that's kind of the point of the game, is to get to the end, you have to beat all of the bosses. That being said, the combat in this game is so bad. It's just like the movement is terrible. The range of the weapons is confusing, particularly the melee ones, where like the range is significantly bigger than they look on the screen, and so you're consistently getting hit by these melee weapons when they're like the enemy's not even close to you. I struggle to understand how anyone can like the combat in this game, and that's all this game is just the combat.
So at some point you unlock a chainsaw, and that makes everything amazing.
Right. I did not get to the chainsaw. So for reference, I beat the first boss, and I fought the second boss once, and I was like, I cannot be bothered with this game anymore. That was as far as I got.
That's fair. I totally get it, and I totally get why you're not a huge fan of it. But there's something about it that just kept me going. I'm so frustrated that I didn't manage to finish the game, because literally, like, I've done that last level 3 times today, and I've gotten so close to finishing it each time, and it's so frustrating. But I know it's going to be great when I do finish it. I think.
So, how do you feel about the humor in this game? Because obviously the humor was a huge part of Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion.
Yeah, I think in some ways, in some places, I think it has made me feel the same way as the first game did. But some of it has felt a little bit flat, and I'm not quite sure why. Like, it's simple things like, I there's a point where you come across a specific thing from a previous game, right? And it's like, it's one of these things that you tore up, which is like one of the main things in the last game is you're tearing up random things. And some things it's like, oh yeah, because you're tearing up this tax letter, and you're tearing up this, you're tearing up that, and there's some random pointless thing that's like, why did you tear that up? You know, it's just stupid, it's pointless, but it's funny. And you come across one of the things that you tore up in the previous game, but it then says, oh, but it's laminated, and then the next thing is they're learning.
Yep.
It's just that one comment like is funnier than most games, right? But then a lot of, especially the early game humor, feels a little bit weird to me, and I'm not sure why it didn't hit in the same way.
I have the same feeling, right? Like, the game definitely still has those moments where it is very funny. I think a big part of the reason it doesn't hit is because it's now expected, right? In the construct of robs a bank, right? Like, if you've played Commits Tax Evasion, you have a good sense of the developers' feelings on capitalism in general, and a lot of it's expected. So you come across things, and you kind of get where a lot of it is going. Where I think, and part of it is that the first one had that sort of joy of discovery of what's the next document that I'm going to find and rip up. And some of them are very funny because, not that they're fully unexpected, but they go in different directions, right? Which I think is one of the bits of charm of that game that's kind of lost it. And I think early on they try and do a job of they do a lot of callbacks to some of the humor from the first game, or to significant bits from the first game. But it doesn't land. And I think one of the downsides is one of the first characters that you come across is the streamer, and they kind of just run back the exposure bucks joke.
Yeah.
And it's it's just like, it's fine. And like, they delve into new things. Like, there's some jokes about NFTs and all of the fun stuff that's developed in the world to, con people out of money, and they have jokes about it. It just is like, yeah, those are the jokes that I now expect from them. And I think this game would have benefited by potentially pushing into a different commentary on society, because that's definitely an element of the game, and I just don't think a lot of them work. Fair.
I think the humor that kind of, Right, I'm having lots of thoughts. So I think that actually there's two things of the funniest bits in this game. One of them is some of the callbacks are very funny. Some of them are not, but some of them are very funny. So I don't think it's just like if you don't do the callbacks, I think you're missing something. I think that's fun. I think they might lean into a bit too much. Like, I think there are too many characters in the game that were in the previous one. Like, almost every single character is in the game again, except, the one you kill. Right? That's not to say there aren't new characters. There are new characters, but it seems weird to have, like, it feels contrived why everybody else is in the game.
Yes.
But I also think that some of the funniest bits in the game are the absurdist parts. I suspect you have. I don't know. Have you done much with the lifts?
Only a little bit.
So they start out quite simple, right? We're going to spoil basically everything in this game, listeners, right? So jump out now if you have played the first game and you think you might like this, you can go over the roguelite stuff. Stop now, go play it. You can get it done in a day or two. It's not a very long game, depending on how good you are at the combat. So the lifts start out quite simple. It's like, oh, here's a part of the bank, and you have to go through and you like jump over the lasers and you destroy the laser box, and then you go back and you blah blah blah, right? But as you defeat bosses and you progress in the game, they become more and more ridiculous. Have you come across the cult?
No.
There's a cult in the bank, and you come to the bank, and once you've figured out how to enter the cult, you can then enter the cult, and then the cult members give you different things for defeating a certain number of enemies. And the stuff in the cult is really funny, and just the concept of having this random room in the bank that happens to have a cult in it is very funny. And there's another one which is like a portal. There's a portal to hell in this bank.
Amazing.
Did you know that? Did
no.
you know there's a portal to
See,
hell?
and that's the thing. I feel like I've played a decent chunk of the game, and I haven't come across anything that absurdist, which is one of the misses, right?
Yeah. So I think part of the problem is they lent into the roguelite stuff of that. Those are randomized. So as you unlock, the lift can do more and more things, and you're not guaranteed to see any of them in any run. And I think that's where it falls down for me. I think if these rooms all existed in fixed places in the bank that you could go to, I think that would be better.
Yeah, or if there was a small pool, and you kind of like, you can still have some element of randomness, but not as much.
Yeah, I maybe. I mean, yeah, I think making it the advantage of having a fixed place is when you look on the map, you see there's a bunch of rooms, and you're like, oh, I need to unlock that room at some point then, and there's going to be something in that room. The problem is that all of these, you don't know when you've seen all these areas.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because they're randomized with the lifts.
Yeah.
There's like some random underwater one as well, and like, yeah, whatever. That absurdist stuff I think is very funny still, and yes, some of the callbacks have been very funny. Some of the callbacks have felt very contrived, and yeah, it's an interesting mix of those things. I think the problem is that if it wasn't funny at all, I would be like, oh, it's one and done, we're done with this. But the problem is I think they can do more of the same humor and still surprise me. And that's where I'm like, don't lean too hard onto the same jokes. Do the more stuff, because I know you can do it. And if it needs to be a smaller game, then make it a smaller game. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If there are going to be fewer characters in each room, that's fine. Like, because the room you unlock after the first boss is where like most of the previous game's characters are. They're just there. Why? Because their previous place doesn't work, and it's like, okay, you destroyed their previous place by killing Turnip God. Okay, fine, sure. That's mildly amusing. why are they in the bank? Like it just that seems contrived to me. That's not even absurdist humor. That's just contrived, just so you can get these characters there.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and like because they do explain the reason for it, and even the reason is like that feels like contrived reasoning.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't think any of that would have saved it for you.
No, I don't think so.
I think it would have made me have more fun with it. But overall, I still enjoyed it. Would I have enjoyed it more if it wasn't a roguelite and it was more like the previous game? Probably. But they did manage to make a roguelite that I like, which is a very rare thing.
Yeah, I mean that's I like honestly, I'm shocked that you like it because when I started it, it was a roguelite, and I was like, oh, I was expecting just the same as the previous game, but with guns as weapons now. I was like, well, Elle's gonna hate this, so we're just gonna come on here and rage about this game for for 40 minutes.
I mean, I do have more complaints. I can bring up more complaints if you want. So there are more weapons in this game than you can actually get in your base, right? So the way it works is like you've got your base and you go out to the bank, you do a run, you come back, and you've got upgrades and your usual roguelite loop. The problem is that when you go out into the bank, there are quite a wide variety of different weapons that the guys that are making new weapons back at your base say are rudimentary, which a lot of them are, but actually some of them are better in ways that I find frustrating. The chainsaw is an incredible weapon that you unlock later on, but there's other ones. There's very, very few. I think there is only one melee weapon that you can actually get from your base, which is very frustrating to me because I much prefer melee to guns because I'm not very good at aiming.
And aiming in this game is bloody annoying.
Yes, it's very difficult. So I would have liked to have had more melee weapons that you can unlock. Melee? Anyway, whatever, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about my pronunciation. Please don't tell me about my pronunciation. Thank you, listeners. I would have liked more of that because I don't know whether it's just something I've missed, but there's almost no melee weapons that you can unlock, which I found a bit frustrating. So that's my big thing. There's no way to, like, when you find something in the bank, there's no way to get it except just picking it up. And if you die with it, that's it. You've lost it. It'd be nice if you could, like, recreate those things because some of them are really nice weapons.
Yeah.
I really like them. And this probably leans into the like, oh, well, that's how roguelites work. Okay, sure, fine. But the bits I like about this game are the non-roguelite bits. Like, I've literally just spent 20 minutes telling you why this game is good because it doesn't do roguelite things in the same way that other roguelites do.
Yeah, I find this game immensely kind of frustrating, and I think that weapon piece is a good example where it's just kind of feels needlessly difficult. Why not just let us unlock all of the weapons at some point? It's kind of one of those things like there's nothing wrong with being able to use all of the weapons, so let us use all the weapons. Yeah,
maybe not all. There is one you get at the last boss, which is just a ridiculous weapon. It's like 4 times the size of you. And it's very fun to use. It's very slow. It actually slows your character down a lot, which is quite interesting. But as lovely video game logic, it only slows you down when you're holding it. If you switch the weapons and it's in your bag, you can run as fast as you normally do.
Amazing. But see, even that would stand out more if it was the only instance of that, right?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think I would keep that one, especially because you can't, although you don't need to defeat any boss after you've defeated them, you can if you want. So it would give you a reason to go and do that. I would say maybe the 4 boss weapons, the weapons that the bosses have, those 4 specifically, because each of them has a specific weapon. The last one being the most ridiculous, but I would understand why those 4, if you want that weapon, you have to go defeat the boss in this run. Adds an interesting element to that. But the problem is that all the other weapons are very random, and it's hard to know. One of them, for example, you get by going through one of the weird lifts into the portal from hell, and you get a scythe that you can, if you kill somebody with the scythe, you can harvest their soul, and then those souls are a second currency with which you can use to buy things.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
It is very fun. It is very fun. There's actually a second weapon in there as well, but it's a gun. It's a record, like a vinyl record gun, which is very funny. But also, like, the way that it works is very different because it's records and not bullets. They bounce off walls, which means you can, like, if you hit, it goes through somebody and then hits a wall and then comes back and hits them. So if they don't die in the first one, they die in the second one. Like, I think this is the thing, is like there's lots of really fun and creative ideas in the weapons, even if they're not the best combat system. But you were never going to see those because you don't have the enthusiasm for the type of game, and so you miss out on that fun, which is disappointing.
Yeah, and some of it I think speaks to the onboarding, right? Because like even like fundamentally the premise of the game being that you're robbing a bank, and there's like a huge cutscene that follows on from, you know, Turnip Boy commits tax evasion and where that game ended. But ultimately it's kind of like, but why? Yeah, like there isn't really a compelling reason for why you are even robbing the bank, which I find, like, it's just one of those things frustrating. They did have a question. How do you feel about the timer?
So I don't hate the timer, and that's because it is not a hard timer. So the way the timer works is once the timer hits, the police come, but it makes everything harder because there's more enemies, but you can still do everything. So you can infinitely do a run as long as you're not dying. And I actually really like that way of doing it. Where they're trying to force you to be quick about things, but if you're like, oh, I can just grab that one last thing, and it means that the timer's going to run out, you don't die, you just have to fight your way out. I quite like that. For what they're doing, for everything that they're doing, I think it works thematically and mechanically well with what they wanted to do. Is that a fair way of saying that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And for me, it's another aspect of, like, I just don't like feeling time pressure in games. It's something that I fundamentally do not enjoy. And when the combat is bad, and I would prefer a slower approach to it, like, I get why they did it, because they're wanting to put that sort of heist-style pressure on. And it's kind of one of those ways that they can do to force you to do multiple runs, right? Without the timer, I think the game would be significantly different and not necessarily better. I just don't want a timer.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I think it probably fundamentally speaks to that. I just want this game to be a different game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you generally. I don't like timers in games. But I can't explain why, but I really like this game. I'm going to finish the game. I'm going to do that. I don't often do that with games that we talk about. If I've not finished it by the time we podcast, and it's not like one of my favorite games of all time, I'm probably going to stop at that point. But I can't stop.
Well, when you're so close to the end.
I'm so close to the end, and I think I'm very close to 100% completion because I've unlocked everything in the dark web, and I've unlocked all of the what are they called?
The power-ups. What are they called?
Yeah, it's like
the performance enhancers.
Yes, but there's a different word for it.
I thought they called it the performance enhancers. Because it's the macho onion who's, you know, effectively selling steroids, yeah.
But one of them is called steroids, so yeah, maybe it is just overall they're called performance enhancers. Roboroids. That's what he's calling them. or performance enhancers. He calls them both. Anyway, so yeah, I've unlocked all of them. I don't think I've unlocked all of the weapons, but I suspect I'm close because I'm at level 8. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 10 levels. So I could easily get that done, I think, after I finish the game. So I suspect I'm pretty close to full completion. It's hard to know because there is a statistics thing, a progress that tells you, and I'm at 74% there, but I suspect most of it is pretty small stuff after I've finished the game.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Turnip Boy games are never that big. I
have one more issue.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more issue. The task list is bugged, so you can't scroll down the task list. You can only see the top task on the task list.
Oh, interesting.
Very annoying.
I don't know that I'd looked at the task list.
Yeah. So I know I have more tasks to do. I just don't know what they are until I've done the top one. And the top one is the current. Okay. I'm presume you're happy with me going full spoilers.
Yep. Let's do it.
So the task I have on my task list is steal the bank.
What?
So once you've done all of the bosses, you, for some reason that I can't remember exactly why, you decide that you're going to take the bank into space. And so you have to go around and defeat each of the bosses again. And when you've defeated the boss, you put a rocket booster where they were, because you have to put it in this. They're like, oh, you have to put it in the 4 corners, and it has to be right in the middle of the room. And You're like, oh, funny that's where the bosses are. So you have to do all the bosses, and by this point it's actually not too difficult to defeat all the bosses at this point, because what I've been doing is like go defeat the final boss, get that stupid weapon that they have, and then everything else, that plus the chainsaw, is you can kill them all really easily. Like the apple, the toffee apple that you did once, I just need to avoid it for a few seconds. It thumps to the ground. I go on the chainsaw on it for 10 seconds and it's dead. So it's like they've really got the power level enjoyment thing at this point, right? Where you're like, I feel so powerful now because this was really difficult to get to, and now I can completely destroy it. But yeah, so you go around, you put the 4 rocket boosters on, and then you shoot up into space. And I've done that, but then when you're in space, the aliens come, of course, because apparently they come because they know that you defeated Turnip God, and therefore they need to take you down. And so they come and they try and take you down, and then that's when you need to go and turn off all of the boosters and try and land on the moon, I think, was what they were saying. So then you have to run between the 4 boosters to turn them all off. But the problem is that the bank is half destroyed because you literally just tried to take it off. You tried to launch it from the earth. So it's half destroyed. So you have to figure out the right way to get between all 4 of them. And the alien that's trying to kill you is very powerful. That sounds mad when you explain it.
It sounds like Turnip Boy.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is like, the more, if you can get past, or if you enjoy the story, then not the story, the gameplay, I think the story is still very fun and still very Turnip Boy. And most of the stuff that has felt flat or made me roll my eyes has been like a few of the small one-off comments. The overall story, I think, is very stupid, which is what we want. Don't think I would be complaining if if their next game wasn't a roguelite, though.
Cool.
Anything else we need to talk about with this game?
One more thing. If you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be?
I hate these questions because I never know how to answer them. I always think too literally on them.
Great.
Like, what would be the point of being a vegetable? I wouldn't want to be a vegetable because they're not sentient and you're likely just going to be eaten by someone.
We just talked about a game where it's all sentient vegetables, Al.
Yep, okay, so are we talking about in the Turnip Boy universe?
If you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be?
Well, I would be Turnip Boy because he's clearly the most powerful being in the universe.
So would you be a turnip? Is that your?
No, I would be Turnip Boy.
No, that's not an answer.
In what situation are you asking? Like, why am I a vegetable?
Look, the rest is the question is, if you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be?
I disagree with the premise of the question.
Good. Now answer it.
Look, if listeners didn't already think I was autistic, they definitely do now. What about you, Jonnie? What vegetable would you be?
I would be broccoli.
Why?
I don't know. I just know that I would be broccoli.
I understand less now. I don't understand. How do you just know? What does it mean to know what vegetable you want to be?
It's just a feeling you get inside when you think about what vegetable you would be.
Well, a feeling I get when you ask me that question is fear and panic.
Look, I think you would be a tomato, so we'll go with that. And if listeners wanted to tell you what sort of vegetable they think you are, where could they do that?
You've thrown me off here. If you want to cause me more pain and anguish, you can do that by finding me on mastodon.scot and Twitter. I am at the ScotBot. Jonnie doesn't care about the internet.
Correct.
You can find the podcast on Tumblr and Twitter at THSPod. You can also find all of the links to everything related to the podcast at our website, harvestseason.club, where we also have a feedback form. So if you want to give us feedback, but you don't want to do it on social media, that's where you can do it. That will come straight to us. And if you send us feedback, we'll probably read it out.
Particularly if it's about vegetables.
Less likely. You can also find a link to our Patreon on the website, patreon.com/thspod, where you can support the podcast financially and have access to extra bonus episodes of the podcast when we remember to do them. And also get access to the Slack, where we like to talk about lots of things, and I'm sure there'll be lots of comments on there about what vegetable I am, and I'm sure I will hate when that happens, but it's all right because I'll be in America, so I'll be ignoring the Slack. I think that's everything. Thank you, Jonnie, for being with me and talking about this game that you hate.
Look, I was going to play it anyway, right? So it's always fun to talk about it and share opinions.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah, I'm pleased that I got to play. And to be honest, I played a little bit more of it than I would have otherwise. And, I had a decent time with the game. It's just not for me. So it's fun to learn. And it's fun to hear a little bit more about how the game gets later on. So it's been fun for me.
Fair enough. Thank you, listeners, for listening. And until next time, have a good harvest. The Harvest Season is created by Al McKinley, with support from our patrons, including our pro farmers, Kevin, Stuart, and Elisa. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode.
So you can totally blame Steve for that question, because while I was sort of like getting my stuff set up, I was like, oh my god, I thought of that question. I was like, Al's gonna hate that question. I cannot wait to ask him what vegetable he thinks he is. So the delay is entirely to blame.
Thank you, Jonnie.